Hello and welcome to Step by Step Listening Live Motivational Monday. For those who don't know me, I'm Cheryl Andrews, and today the subject is overthinking. One of the things that we can be accused of or criticised by others is, oh, you're overthinking that situation. So I just want to clarify for you to I just got the definition out of the dictionary actually. It says, think about something too much or for too long. So this is another time monster, isn't it? It's about actually that language around time, and it's so subjective. So I am somebody, I've realised over the years that I think at lots and lots of levels. I've got quite an ability to hold on to lots of information, which is why I love doing what I do. But I have been accused so many times in my lifetime for overthinking. Susie, thanks for joining us today. I'd love to know your thoughts about overthinking. Have you ever accused somebody of overthinking? Do you think you overthink things? Love to know your thoughts on this subject, because it's one of those criticisms that we're so guilty of putting out to people. But what if it is that when somebody is talking about a complex problem and there's lots and lots of levels to it, that it's not that they're overthinking, it's just they're thinking about it in a way that's not comfortable for us to process, it's not comfortable for us to listen to. And so I want to define the difference between when I'm overthinking something and I'm just simply thinking. For me, I've got confidence in that process when I'm thinking through things and I'm going over and over it again. When I think I'm overthinking it, it's a definition of overthinking. It's often when I feel stuck, when I can see no progress. Whereas thinking, that takes me time, and it's like a big ball of wool. So I've got lots of stuff in there. So this weekend, for example, I've spent quite a bit of time not really doing very much. Been to the gym, spent some time reading, just being, walking in nature, because I did an amazing session with Karen Murray on Friday called the Breakthrough Year, which is like, the events I run for my clients. My clients come to me and ask them lots of questions, and it makes them think. So I know that I'm going to need some time to think about it. So if I take a week to think about it, make a decision, somebody else could quite easily say to me, I'm overthinking it. So Susie, you put Martin overthinks many simple situations when it comes to social experiences, which is down to a lack of confidence. I'd love to know how you know that. Where does it come from? Oh, just kick the stand. Where does it come from for you that you have that? So what are you actually seeing and hearing that says he's overthinking it? And where does it come from for you? What do you hear and see that tells you it's lack of confidence? I'd love to know where you're getting that information from, because what I want to educate people about with step-by-step listening is that we're all guilty of doing this. I do it as well. I was at the breakthrough session and I've got the conscious thinking sheets, and there's a couple of things that the presenter said. There's some people on my table said things and I'm like, oh, don't think I agree with that. I write it down and I go, actually, what's this teaching me about myself? Step-by-step listening is all about creating the tools and the resources to, one, listen to yourself and other people without judgment, to ask questions to understand what is happening in their world, and to give feedback to yourself and other people that is actually helpful. And when we just criticize somebody as saying they're overthinking, it might simply be that they take longer to think about things than we do. And just going back to the definition in the dictionary is think about something too much or for too long. It's so subjective. How much is too much and how long is too long? But the questions he asked when we get home, where he thinks people think less of him than they do. Okay, you and I know each other really well, and one of the things I say when if there's anybody else out there that comes back and feels that other people are criticizing you, just be aware of whether you criticize yourself, because I talk about it in the book Overwhelmed to Clarity, the Manager Critic book, the reflection, and it's a great activity based on some of the work of Byron Katie. We often, when criticism hurts us or it impacts us, the chances are is that we have some belief around that ourselves already. So I used to get really upset when people said I was overthinking things, because I felt like I overthought things and it was really, really difficult for me to get my head around things. Since learning about clean language 10 years ago, what it's given me is the opportunity to go, okay, what do I mean? What does overthink mean to me? When is thinking working for me and when is it not working for me? And I had to go through a process of actually understanding, how do I learn? When I hear something, how am I processing it? When I question something, what works about the way I question? And what's the feedback I'm giving to myself? And by getting to understand how I learn, meant that I could question when feedback people gave me hurt me. I could make an informed decision. Do I think I'm overthinking things or not? And if I do think that, I don't think there is such an overthinking. It's really saying you've thought about something for too long or too much. And that's so subjective, and it's a time monster thing. It's just a language around time that's got an inference that for somebody by their standard, it's taken too long or too much. So some of the things I think now is that it's just ask myself the question, have I thought about this for too long and too much? And if I don't know, how long would be too much or too long? And Susie, you just put that he does criticise himself a lot. It's great because what I've realised, the more that I put my attention on what I do, so let's say the overthinking, maybe I was criticised for overthinking, and maybe as a result of that I start to criticise myself for overthinking, it becomes this kind of vicious circle. Whereas actually if I start to notice that my thinking is in depth, it tackles complex things. So over the weekend I've been processing what I learned on Friday. I've also, the weekend before that, I'd done some work on with my own coach as well. So I worked with Leslie on Friday in the Clarity Retreat. So I've been doing things to that have got my brain going. And when we're going to go through change, what I know for me is I have to start with conscious thinking. And often most people that I feel that have accused me in the past of overthinking are usually people who underthink. They don't take time to catch their own thoughts. They're not aware of what they're saying. They're not even aware of what they're thinking, and they don't know how those thoughts impact their emotions, and how those emotions then impact their behavior. And so it's like with Martin, is the more that we allow ourselves to develop what works about us, and we allow ourselves to have those thoughts, then when people criticize us, we can be more subjective about it. We can be more objective about it. We can separate what is their stuff from our stuff. So today I want you to think about overthinking. I'd love to know what your definition of it is. So Susie, you've put Martin overthinks many simple situations. And I think that Martin, when I've spoken to Martin, he is able to look at complex problems, global problems with eco environments, with animals, and he knows the knock-on effect of things. So I would argue perhaps that he's not overthinking simple situations. He understands the complexity of what can be seen as simple problems or solutions in an environment. He's looking at the knock-on effect, but maybe just not aware of the knock-on effect that it has. If he doesn't have confidence in himself, then people may not listen to what it is he's got to say. And also, if he can't boil it down and get that clarity of what he's saying and get it into simple terms so other people can understand it, then he won't get heard, and he won't be able to create the change that he wants to create in the world. And that's the most important thing for me, is that just think about whatever you're being criticised. If you've criticised yourself or someone's criticised you for overthinking, even the definition of the dictionary just says it's thought about it too much or too often. And that is just so personal and bespoke. And it might be there are some people's brains that cannot actually process that much information. So I just want to leave it out there for you today. I want you to think about, are you overthinking or are you simply thinking? How long and how often is too much for you personally? And if you have been thinking about a problem, there is nothing worse than when we are stuck in a decision. Now, others might accuse us of overthinking, but actually maybe that's you've been thinking about this problem, and then we get into overwhelm, and we can get into overwhelm for 3 reasons. One, we've got a life-changing decision to make that we know is going to have an impact on ourselves and the world, and it's going to impact, for a long time. It's not like just if I choose to have a pasty today, it's not very healthy for me, but if I choose to have it every day for 3 weeks, that might not be so good. But big decisions in our life, whether to change the direction of the business, whether to stay in a relationship, whether to cancel contracts, change your target market, that some of those decisions we have to make are quite big decisions, and we already subconsciously know it's going to have a massive impact on lots of areas. We can get stuck, and then we could be accused of overthinking, when actually it's just that we haven't had someone to help facilitate our thinking so that we can get it out and actually see it for ourselves. So if you're stuck with a decision, The other ways that we get stuck and we start overthinking it is if we've made a number of decisions and our critic has then judged us, or somebody else has judged us and labelled us with being poor decision makers, or that was a bad decision, or I'm not very good at decisions, then we can get stuck in overwhelm, because there'll be lots and lots of little decisions that we're not making a decision about because we've lost confidence in our decision making process. And at that point, it's about facilitating out what is happening when you make a good decision and start to rebuild your confidence in your decision making process. And the third reason that we actually lose confidence in our decision making, and we often get accused of overthinking, is we've got clarity of what we want, we've made the decision, we've got confidence in our decision and why we're doing it, we know exactly what's important, but when we go to communicate it to somebody else, they criticise it, they give us feedback, and then it's that point, you've got to decide when to change or not. Sometimes it's a case of just being okay with that other people think differently to us. And then you have to revisit your clarity and your confidence and be sure that's still the right thing. And sometimes these people give us more information that we didn't have, and then we have to revisit the original decision. But what can happen in this world where we have so much information, you just tell a friend you've decided you're going to do this, and they go, oh, but have you thought about that? Have you thought about that? Those endless options, with the internet, you can Google, you can search, you just read something on Facebook, and before you know it, let's say you decide to, I don't know, change the TV or upgrade your phone, and you finally made the decision, and somebody comes up with a review and you think, oh, shall I do that or not? Then you can get back in this loop of questioning your decision, and that's when you might be accused of overthinking, or maybe you will be feeling like you're overthinking it, because actually you now get into what I would call decision fatigue, and you've lost sense of what you need to calibrate against in order to make an informed decision. And it will often come down to time, as overthinking is accused of, is that we just get sick of thinking about it for such a long time. So please tell me what your thoughts about overthinking. Have you ever accused somebody of it? Have you been accused of it? And as always, the question is, what would you like to have happen? What I want you to be unstuck. I don't want you stuck in overwhelm. I want you to have clarity of what you want, the confidence in that decision, and also the understanding of what you need to be able to go through that change process, because change is uncomfortable, but when you learn to be comfortable with uncomfortable, you'll get through that. So that thinking phase that can be a bit uncomfortable because you've got to go through the research, the development, the checking, means you'll know the process and it'll work for you. Hope that's useful for you today. I don't think there's anything, Susie's gone there. So I'm going to leave that with you. Susie, if you can share that out to the other groups, that would be great. Have a fantastic week, and no overthinking this week, just thinking. And if you want any more information about how you get clarity, confidence, change, then obviously pop something in the comments. Speak to you soon.